Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name's Albert. I'm a full-time healthcare worker and I sell used books on Amazon part-time. This video is going to show you how to use ScanLister to send your books to Amazon. It's going to be a two-part video. The first one's going to be showing kind of the basics and how to get started. Part 2 is going to come later on. It's going to talk about once you've scanned all the books and prepped them, how do you actually get them to Amazon. I've tried to use other softwares like To, which is pretty popular right now. However, To doesn't support Canadian Marketplace, and that being said, unfortunately we as Canadians only have a few options. So I would say ScanLister is pretty good. I haven't played with any of the other ones, so I can't give you my opinion, but all I know is about ScanLister works pretty well. Hopefully, if you guys are looking to learn how to use ScanLister, this is going to help. For the record, I am a Mac OS user, so I have a MacBook. So I'm using ScanLister on Apple. I'm pretty sure it's available on PC, but it may look a little different for those people using Windows. So if it looks a little different for you, it's probably because I'm using a Mac. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do when you open up ScanLister is you're going to come across this big window that has a lot of information, a lot of boxes. And I mean, it looks like a lot at front in the beginning, but once you start to familiarize yourself with it, it's pretty easy. So the first things first, on the top left is you're going to see something called a SKU prefix. That's basically a setting that you can have. So every one of your product SKUs will have a set prefix to it. So for example, what I do is I will put the cost of my book. So let's say the book cost me $2. I'm going to put a 2 in the beginning so that I know when I'm listing the product. And then later on, when I check the SKU, I can tell how much that book cost. So that's one way of doing it. There's other ways as well, but you'll find your own kind of nuances around it. But that's what it is, SKU prefix. So for example, if I want to do what I said, I'm going to put a 2. I'm going to put a 2 there and maybe put a dash afterwards, and that's going to allow me to, every time I scan a book, it's going to start with 2 dash, and so on and so on. Okay, next is SKU sequence. This is basically a running number that every time you scan a book, the number is going to increase by 1. So if right now I'm at 0 because technically I've scanned 0 books. If I scan my first book, it's going to be number 1, and then the next book is going to be number 2, and so on and so on. Okay, supplier. This is something that you'd have to go in there and set in the settings, and then you can set the supplier for each of the books. I tend to not do that because for my personal SKUs, I put my supplier name, or I should say I put my supplier acronym or a code that I create for my suppliers into my SKU, so I always know. So for supplier, I usually just skip that. Default price is something that you can put where you always have a price of like every time you scan a book, it's always going to be listed at that price. The reason why you do that is because you want to make sure that you know which books you've recently scanned that require to be repriced later on. For me, I do $66.66 so that I know later on in the listing that this is a book that is new for me and it needs to be repriced. This, you can do whatever you want. I probably wouldn't put something too low because what happens is this is the price that your Amazon listing is going to have the moment it goes active. So unless you change your pricing, so let's say if you don't use a repricer and you go in there and you manually change your pricing, that default price right here is what's going to show up on the ad listing. So if you put, let's say, $1 like this, and your book goes live, it's going to be for sale for $1. So I mean, it's happened to many people. It hasn't happened to me, luckily, fingers crossed, knock on wood, but it has happened to a lot of people where they set their pricing kind of funny, the book goes live and they're not able to get to it in time, and boom, someone buys it for $1. Okay, so what I do here for all my books is I will do $66.66, okay? Default quantity, that just means every time you're scanning, it's one book, right? So that you can just kind of leave it as is. Cost per unit, this is also what I'm saying earlier. When you buy a book, let's say it's cost you $2, you're going to put $2 here, right? However, that cost per unit, after you've listed the book, you don't see that anywhere. It doesn't go into, it's not a metric or information that Amazon is going to pull. So really you can put whatever number there you want, it's not going to change anything. So I just leave a default for $2, and I always change my pricing in my SKU, right? So let's say I know I have these 10 books that cost $2 each. I'm going to put 2 dash, and then it's going to scan. And then when I move on to my next pile, which is maybe $5 each, I'll put, 5 dash or something like that. That's just my way of doing it. Like I said, you'll find your own way of doing it, whatever works for you. Okay, next here is condition. So every time you scan a book, or I should say before you scan a book, you have to assign a condition to the book. Okay, so let's say I have a book that looks good. I will choose used good. And then once you do that, the condition note right underneath it is going to automatically populate. That's something that you can change beforehand. In ScanLister, there are presets that are pretty good. You can use them. You'll find later on there's maybe some details that you want to add yourself. Those you can put in after, and I can show you how to do that later. Okay, so let's say I choose use good. It automatically gives me two options. First is contains writing or highlighting, which is pretty common for used books. And the second one is minimal signs of wear. Okay, so you're going to choose one of these two. So if it doesn't have any writing or highlighting, minimal signs of wear is pretty good. It basically means like the book, it's not new, but it's not like horrible condition. So it's good, but it's not, terrible, right? So that's what that condition is. Underneath Marketplace, obviously it's going to have your Marketplace connected. So once you have ScanLister downloaded and set up, you're going to connect your Amazon account to it, your Marketplace account, and it's going to show you for mine, Amazon.ca. And then last but not least, you're going to choose, there's two different listing methods when it comes to ScanLister. The first one is bulk listing, which is what you see in front of you. The second one is detailed listing. And what that does is, instead of listing a whole bunch of books at the same time, detailed listing allows you to kind of set your pricing per book, and it's a very micromanaged way of doing it. It's definitely not the suggested way of doing it because it takes a lot of time. So if everyone knows that if you're selling books, the name of the game is volume, right? If you have 50 bucks, 100 bucks, 200 bucks that you're scanning to send to Amazon, detailed listing is going to take you forever to scan your books. So I use bulk listing. Majority of people use bulk listing. I think everyone uses bulk listing. I don't know anyone that uses detailed listing, but bulk listing by far is the fastest option, okay? And what we're trying to do is we're trying to minimize the amount of time that we spend processing our books so that the amount of time we spend on books is less, so that we actually end up making more money, if you know what I mean. In any case, let's keep going. So next section here is barcode. That's gonna be where you enter the barcode for the book that you're gonna scan. Personally, what I use is a USB scanner. Kind of looks like this, and it just plugs into my computer, and it just scans the book like that, right? So you can, if you want, if you don't have one of those, you can always type in the UPC code, right, or the ISBN. That works too. But definitely, I would definitely suggest getting some sort of scanner to make it faster for you. If you're already using a Bluetooth scanner in stores when you're scanning the books, you can connect the Bluetooth scanner to your computer and use it that way if you like. I just like the USB one because the battery never dies and it never goes anywhere. It's always stuck here when I'm prepping my books. So that's why I use that. But I mean, whatever, it's up to you, whatever you want to use, right? If you don't want to spend the money for a dedicated scanner at home, then just use the one that you're using for scanning books in the stores and it's just fine. Okay, so once you scan the book and barcode, all this information here is going to populate. You're just going to see the picture of the book here in this box, and you're going to have all the information as the title, the publisher, if it's buying like a hardcover or paperback. And it's going to show you the rank. It's going to show you the weight of the book based on what the listing says, right? So ScanLister is pulling information from Amazon in terms of what the weight of the book is. Okay. And then on the right here, you're going to see, after you scan a book, if you hit build note, you can then customize the condition note, which is the one up here on top. If you hit build note afterwards, you can then customize what you want to say. And then print FNSKU FNSKU basically is the little label that you're going to attach to each book prior to sending it to Amazon. So each book has a barcode already. If it doesn't have a barcode, it has an ISBN. But the FNSKU is Amazon's barcode. Okay, so this is what you're gonna apply it on top of the existing barcode to make sure that when the employees at the Amazon warehouse are scanning your books into the inventory, they're scanning your FNSKU label and they're not scanning Amazon, just a regular UPC code that's on the book. Okay, but how I have it set up is I'll go into my settings here and you'll see what I've done. So here we are. Let's see, where am I at? Settings. down here at the bottom right, settings. So what I do is, the first section you see fulfilled options. I use scan and label mode. What that does is every time you scan a book, a label is going to come out and you're going to attach it to the book. Auto print FNSKU label next. That means that it's just going to automatically, your label printer is automatically going to print a label as you're scanning. This only applies if you have a thermal printer with labels connected to it. So if you don't have a thermal printer and you're still using like just a regular bubble jet or laser printer with the 30, the 30 up labels that that you can get, this option here is not going to work for that, because this is like automatically printing one at a time. So if you're first starting out like I did, I didn't have a thermal printer. I was scanning, I was basically setting them all up one at a time, and then I would have it all the labels on one big sheet of 30, and I'd print it one at a time, and then I would apply it afterwards. Unfortunately, that is definitely the slowest and not a very efficient way of doing it. If you're really serious about selling books and efficiency and speed is a priority for you, which it technically should be, then I would definitely suggest getting some sort of thermal printer. You don't need to get some crazy expensive one. I bought one off of Amazon that was like pretty cheap, and it's not the greatest, but it works perfectly fine, and I haven't had any issues with it. So definitely, if that's something that you want to do, go ahead, go find something. I can't recommend a certain one because I've only bought the one, and it works fine for me, but it might not be great for you. But like I said, go to Amazon if you want to find one, and just find a thermal printer that you can use. It's going to save you so much time. Okay, on with the software. So this stuff, you just want to, I have a seller label only. Basically what that means is, like I said, it's the FNSKU label that you need to put onto the books. And then if I keep going here, these are just things that I kind of ignore. I don't really use it. SKU pattern. So this is what I talked about in the beginning with this SKU prefix and the SKU sequence, right? So how I have it set up is, if you look at here, the SKU format, I have prefix to start. So that number that I set as my, usually it's my cost, it's going to be the beginning, and then it's going to have a dash, and then sequence number, which is the one right underneath here, is going to be like what number book that I've scanned, right? And then followed by, it's going to have the month, day, year that I scanned the book into ScanLister. So technically my prefix is probably going to look like, let's say if a book was $2, it's going to say 2 dash, if it's the first book, 1, so 2-1 dash today's date. Okay, so then so these numbers are important because these numbers are going to help you track later on. First of all, how much the book cost you. So when you're talking about like your setting up your pricing, you can actually see, okay, this book costs this much, and then you can take that into account. Next thing is sequences. You kind of want to see how many books you've scanned that year. So for me, when 2025 comes around, I'm going to reset that number to 0 so that I know during 2024 how many books I scanned. And 2025, when it comes around, then I can start back at 1, and then the number starts over again. And then finally, month, day, year is really good for when you're tracking to see how long books take to sell. So for example, if I scan it today, right, and I post it to Amazon, and then it gets checked in and it gets ready for Amazon Prime, from that moment until the next moment when it sells, I can then see, oh, this book, took, whatever, 25, 30 days to sell. And then I can kind of get an understanding and have more data as to how long my books sell, which type of books sell faster, and maybe I want to look out for those more, or, it's just more information, more data for you to collect, which is going to help you in the long run. Okay. So that's how my my SKU format looks, and then that's you can kind of go in there and set it how you like. Okay, general, I just kind of leave it. I have I have here, like, these are just general numbers, like they don't really mean very much. Box content, not much. Here, FNSKU label is you're going to want to choose your label printer accordingly. Amazon account is where you're going to have set up your Amazon account, and then that's pretty much it. Okay, so settings wise, it's not too crazy, right? Once you go in there, you set up your Amazon account, and then you've got your label printer, or however you are printing your labels, and then you're ready to go. Okay, so the first part, that's pretty much it. There's some other stuff at the bottom, but that's I can show you as we go. So what I've done is I've got a few books, and I'm going to go over kind of the process. Okay, so let's say the book I'm going to say these books, I have 3 books to scan. Let's say they all cost $2 each. Okay, so the way I do it is I'm going to set it up like this. I have $2 for my price. Okay, SKU sequence is going to be 0 because this is going to be the first book I'm scanning. Okay, so imagine this is the first book I scan in 2024. So that's how I'm doing it. Default price, I always have a 66.66 so that I can recognize immediately that that's a new book. Default quantity 1, cost per unit 2, we'll just leave it default like that, okay? Condition. So this is something that people have different opinions about. From the people that I learned how to sell books, this is how they do it, and now this is how I do it because it just makes the most sense. And it's all about efficiency in the end, okay? So what I do is I only ever list in 2 listings or 2 conditions. The first one is used good, and the second one is used acceptable. The reason why I do this is because opinions are different. Everyone has their own way of looking at a book. A book could be very good or like new to someone, and it could be good to somebody else, right? So just because I go in there and say, oh, this book looks like new, to someone else that might not be the case, and then they might not be happy with that. Okay, so what I do is I just set as used good, and then if it is actually like new or very good, then what I've done is I've under promised, but I've over delivered. Okay, so there's room for people to be surprised and content with their purchase. But if I did the other way around, then there's always a chance that someone's going to complain and maybe have a return, or worst case scenario, they leave a bad review. Okay, so what I like to do is every book I have is pretty much good, all right, good condition. And then you'll have, it has 2 default ones. One is minimal signs of wear, which is like, it's just your generic book. And then the other one contains writing or highlighting, okay? And if it doesn't have writing or highlighting, then I just use the other one, okay? Now, the other option, like I said, is used acceptable. I say used acceptable when it has, signs of like visible wear. So we're talking about like rubbed corners, maybe the cover, there's a crease on the cover, maybe there's like a little bit of water damage, but not like too much, right? Anything else that has something like that, I just say used acceptable, okay? You can also go, and the used acceptable has a show signs of wear, which is basically really generic, but I mean, that's what it has, it shows signs of wear, okay? Like I said, you can go in there and you could customize the way you like it inside your condition notes. But for the sake of the video, and especially when you're trying to scan a lot of books, you want to try to make it as fast as possible, okay? So for example, my books are good. So I'm going to go back, say used good, and there's no writing in them. So I'm going to choose minimal signs of wear, direct from Amazon. Okay, now I'm going to go into my barcode section. I've got my barcode set up right here. I've got my book right here. I'm going to scan the first barcode, just like this. Okay, it's reading, boom, all right? Now, you see here it has the cover of the book, the title, the publisher, the binding, it's a paperback, it's in the book category, and it says rank 1,000,000 something 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 with a 0.71 weight. Okay, you'll see here it has number 1, which is the first book that I've scanned. This is the title right here, and you can look at the SKU. It says 2, remember I said the $2, and then it has $1 here with the number book I scanned, followed by today's date, which is July 20th, 2024. Okay, the ID number here is basically the ID of, I believe it's the ID of like the SKU, like the ISBN, I apologize. And then the ASIN here, right here, 17704, that's the ASIN, that's number in Amazon. So Amazon, like if you know, Amazon assigns every product that they have with an ASIN. Okay, that's the ASIN. 1 quantity, used condition, that's the note that I assigned. And these are other information like date purchase and stuff that you enter, okay? So as you scan, the way I have it, like the label comes out. I don't have the label connected right now, but what would happen in this case is that once I've scanned the book, a label is going to come out and I'm going to attach it to the book. If you're wondering what that process looks like, go back to some of my earlier videos. There's one where I actually show you the process of like prepping the book and scanning the books in and applying the label to the book. So this is kind of like what ScanLister looks like, and the other one just kind of gives you an overview of what we're talking about. Okay, so that's what it looks like when you scan your first book, okay? Let's say, for example, let's say you've said, oh, that's actually not a used good, that's actually a used acceptable book, okay? And you've made a mistake. Unfortunately, you can't go in there and just change it like this. You have to delete that row, so like that, you hit delete row here, you hit yes, and you're gonna have to go back there and scan it. But this time, make sure to choose use acceptable, and then go back in and scan the book as such. Inside, and there you go. Now it's set up in your listing software. The software has assigned a label, an FNSKU label to your book. You put that book aside, or however you want to organize yourself, and then you keep going. So now I've scanned the first book. I'm going to scan my second book. Okay, here we go. Boom. Summer Cove. There it is. All right. So now it's adding. Every time it's going to go in, it's going to add another book to my number. Okay, so you'll notice because we deleted earlier, now you see number is number 2, number 3. Okay, unfortunately, I haven't found a way to fix that. So when I delete a book and when I make a mistake, unfortunately that number it just keeps rolling and rolling and rolling. Okay, so now let's say I'm going to go back and I'm going to say use good. I have another book. All right, third book in. So now it recognizes it, a label comes up, I'm slapping that label onto the book itself, and I'm prepping that for my shipment, okay? So that's what the process looks like when you're scanning books into ScanLister, okay? However many books you have to send to Amazon at that time, that's what you're doing. You're scanning one book at a time. As you're scanning it, you're making sure that the condition is correct, okay? And then also you want to make sure that your SKU prefix, however you decide to set it, is accurate. Okay, so for example, like I said earlier, if I have more books now, but they had a different price point, like I paid a different amount for them, then I will go in there and change the number here so that any other book from this point on is going to scan correctly. So let's say, for example, let me give an example of an incident where, let's say this book here, this used good book. I want to go in there and I want to change the condition notes and I want to make them a little bit more custom, okay? What you would do is you would go here, click that book, click build note on the top right here. And then now it's going to give you a whole bunch of presets that ScanLister has created. There's going to be some in here that I've made myself, and you'll come across situations where you'll need them. But in the meantime, the ones that they give you are pretty good. So here you can kind of go in there and let's say I want to say, oh, okay, so there's a small tear on the dust jacket. So I want to hit that small tear on dust jacket, but the binding is tight. So I'll hit binding tight. There's a little bit of wear on corners on the edges. So let's say I want to click that right there. But then, and also maybe there's like highlighting on some of the pages. I want to click that like that. The book itself is in good condition considering that the binding is tight, but there's also small wear, so I'm gonna hit good condition. And last but not least, I like to use this one, ships direct from Amazon. That reminds people buying your books that it's Amazon Prime, okay? So now you can kind of review it here at the bottom. It says small tear on dust jacket, binding is tight, wear on corners and edges, etc., etc. Ships direct from Amazon. Once you're done and you're satisfied, you just hit finish grading. And now you hit close, and when you go back, you'll see that the note, or I should say the condition note, is now updated to how you like it, okay? So you're very limited in terms of what you can adjust here, but that's one of them, okay? So what you're gonna do at this point is you're gonna keep scanning your books. However many books you have, the more the merrier, obviously, but you're just gonna keep scanning more books, until you have an entire list full of books that you're ready to send, okay? So reminder, one thing is make sure that your condition is set appropriately. You can use very good, you can use good, you can use like new. It's up to you, right? I'm just showing you the way that I do it. Use good, and then I'm gonna go and scan as many books as I can. As I scan the books, I am applying the label to that book, okay? Once you have all your books scanned and labeled, then you're ready for the next step, which is prepping the shipment to Amazon. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to do that. There's a few different ways, but I'm going to show you the way that I have discovered, or what I believe to be the most effective. It might not be the quickest, but it works for me and it's pretty flawless. So stay tuned for the next one. If you have any questions about the current video, please drop a comment down in the comment section. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. I make videos just for you guys. You guys ask questions in the comments, and if there's a question that I can explain better in a video, I'm gonna make a video. So in the meantime, keep scanning your books. Happy reading, and I will catch you in the next one.